Apparently, I am live. It says, we're telling your followers you started a live video. Yeah, people are coming in. Hi, everybody. I hope you're not skipping school. I tried to pick a time that was, like, not too late, but, like, not, you know, people skipping school. Oh, hey, PJ and Thomas. Hi. I'm just going to give, like, a couple of minutes to, like, let people arrive. Then I'm going to read from the book. I'm honestly a little bit nervous about it. Like, I am not, like, for someone who, like, speaks for a living a lot of the time, I'm not so good at, like, reading prose, like, long form. So, you know, I might mess up. That's okay. This is for free, so, you know, who cares, right? Also, there's a strong likelihood that my cat will start crying any minute now because I just got home from an audition a little while ago, and she had been asleep up in the loft, so she's had a nap. And anytime she has a nap, there's like maybe 20 minutes of like groggy cat time, and then she gets the zoomies, and then she just wants to play, and she'll be really annoying because I'm sitting at my table, which she can't jump up on. And that's my story. So yeah, the new book is out today. Backstagers and the Theater of the Ancients. Once again, it has illustrations by Ryan Tsai, the very talented, returning from the comics, and they're really amazing. Like, so the first book was all kind of done in like warm, like orangey tones, which looked really nice, but it looked sort of like a sepia, like almost black and white. These images are all in like turquoisey blue, and they're very pretty, and they just look really, really good. And I introduce more new characters that weren't in the comics in this book, and Ryan really like nailed it, what they look like. They all look really cool. So yeah, he's the best. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, we have 162 people. 160 now. Some people got bored. Okay, that's okay. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me all right? I hear my cat scraping the litter box, so that's cute. Okay. Well, I guess we should get started, right? My little comments have stopped. I'm worried that... Oh, no, you just wait. I don't know how this works, you guys. I'm an old man. Like, this is new. New tech for yours truly. Okay. All right. Here we go. So I'm going to read the prologue and chapter 1 of the new book, which... it's a little long. It'll probably be about like 15-ish minutes of content. If anything goes wrong during this, I apologize, and we'll just start back up when we can. When we last left our boys, they had just defeated a ghost, the Ark Ghost, in fact, the most powerful ghost of all, and sent it packing back to its realm and put up their production of Phantasm, and now it's now. Here we go. And the book is dedicated to the entire company of Deaf West Spring Awakening and for everyone who works to make theater more accessible for all. So here we go. Prologue. When you enter a theater to see a show, take your seat, power off your phone, hopefully, watch the lights fade, and see the magic begin, you probably think you're seeing a story from the beginning. It's a common misconception. Yes, if you think in the most basic terms, that 2 hours traffic of the stage will present you with a complete story from start to finish. But that's not the whole story. When you enter that theater, you enter the history of that theater, from the day it was built through every production, triumph and flop, and every performance leading to the one you are about to witness. You also enter the history of theater itself, from its ancient origins through every innovation that has made your show possible. When the actors enter the stage, you're seeing every step of the journey that brought them there. The years of training, the failures and rejections, the glory of that one yes that got them to your theater on that day, the grueling weeks of rehearsal that prepared them to give that performance. You even see the effect that the very hours leading up to that night's curtain have had upon the actor. Those hours had some effect on you, too, so you and the actor and everyone on the crew and everyone seated around you bring that history into the theater with you. The play you see is a story from the beginning, but the act of seeing a play is very much a story beginning in the middle. This book you are reading, or I'm reading to you, is also a story beginning in the middle. This is important to remember because this story begins with two mysterious figures meeting under a full moon on some ancient hallowed ground wearing stone masks contorted in the most monstrous interpretations of comedy and tragedy. There's a spot art by Ryan. Ooh. It's an ominous scene, and anyone who happened to read it would likely assume the two were up to no good. But if they knew all that had transpired before this night, they would know these two believed that they had gathered in this lonely, dark space to do the greatest good they could possibly do. "Just try to imagine it," said the comedy-masked figure. The voice that emerged from the stone mask's snarl of a smile was a young man's, full of wonder at the ancient ground on which he stood. It was a ruin perched on the edge of a jagged cliff, hanging over the black expanse of a surging cold sea. Rows of crumbling stone benches wrapped arena-style around a well-trodden half-circle of earth. The rows faced what was left of a primitive proscenium stage cut into the edge of the cliff itself. The comedian's voice cut the atmosphere because other than the ebb and flow of the sea below, the space was deadly quiet. Just try to imagine what it was like to come here to see a play when no one even knew what a play was, when the only lighting was elemental, the sun or roaring fires and the moon and the stars, when, once the action began, no ringing cell phone or technical mishap could break the spell. It was pure theater. It must have been magic, the tragedy-masked figure interrupted in the voice of a young woman. It was the real magic of the theater, and it's something we can't imagine because we've never known a world without all those distractions. But hopefully, we'll know soon enough. She reached into her white-draped robes and produced a weathered-looking wooden box. "Can't believe you swiped that," the comedian said. "Borrowed," the tragedian corrected. "We've had this thing for generations. I don't understand why no one is actually using it. Still, if management found out, if we succeed in this, we'll be the new management." Despite his hesitation, the comedian nodded solemnly. "Okay," he said. "No turning back now." The tragedian opened the box, revealing, for the first time in many, many years, a dark stone carved into a shape not unlike a handheld microphone. It was covered in strange sigils and glyphs from a forgotten language. At that exact moment, in a part of the world where the sun was still high in the sky, the Backstagers all let out a terrified scream. Chapter 1. I'm going to take a sip. Okay. Chapter 1. Jory and Hunter were the first to crest the hill, as they had won the drawing to get the very front seat of the first car. They were followed milliseconds later by their friends Beckett and Bailey, Aziz and Adrian, Rayo and Sasha, and Timothy and Jamie, seated in pairs as the roller coaster car plunged downward at an impossible speed. Their screams turned to cheers and laughs, and almost as quickly as it had begun, their roller coaster ride came screeching to a halt, and the Backstagers stumbled out of the car and on to the rest of what had already been a glorious spring day. In case you are joining this story in the middle of the middle, the Backstagers are an indivisible group of outcasts who form the backstage crew at St. Genesius Preparatory High School. Together, they have had many adventures exploring the mysteries that lie beyond the unsafe door that separates the normal world from the enchanted world of the backstage. Not enchanted like in the way some lovesick guy sings about enchanted evenings in a musical, literally enchanted, as in monsters, portals, danger, and magic. Those adventures had occasionally gotten them into terrible trouble, but it also bound them as friends for life. There was Jory. Wait, let's try to do this. Okay, there was Jory, the costume designer of the group, who was perfectly average in every way, except that he possessed a magical notebook that could make any sketch he dreamed up manifest instantly into reality. His boyfriend of almost 6 months, Hunter, right there, was the head builder and stage manager in training. Hunter towered above the others, both due to his impressive height and his mountain of thick brown hair, expertly molded into a perfect pompadour. Beckett, right there, lost my place. Beckett, the master electrician, had shocking green hair, flashing black glasses, and a constant current of caffeine from the innumerable Diet Cokes he drank. Aziz, right there, who could fix anything if he hadn't already built you a new one, was usually the stern voice of reason in the group. But today he was uncharacteristically giddy as he enjoyed a sunny day off with the people he loved. His best friend from childhood, props master Sasha, hanging out up there, was the smallest of the bunch, but his heart and energy were as vast as his giant blue eyes. The newest Backstager, Rayo, was a real-life witch who was actually afraid of the dark forests, and until recently, when he helped save the others from a nefarious ghost, his own power. Timothy, a very tall, very thin, very blonde senior, and his bearded boyfriend Jamie, shorter, rounder, and brunette, were the stage managers at St. Genesius, and had led the group through all kinds of wonderful mayhem for the last few years. This was the regular crew. But today, there were also two very special guest stars, Adrian and Bailey. I think you're about to see Eloise. She's in the loft. Okay, anyway. Two very special guest stars, Adrian and Bailey. Both were students at the nearby Penitent Angel School for Girls and were theater kids, though Adrian was a backstager and Bailey was an onstager, that is to say, an actor. It was always awesome when the Genesius crew got a chance to hang out with the Penitent crew, but today was extra awesome because recently Beckett and Bailey had started hanging out as more than friends, and Aziz and Adrian were full out dating. The Backstagers tried to act like it was any other group hang, but with a new season and so much new romance blossoming all around them, love was undeniably in the air. You know those times when you look around and realize you're inside a memory? Bailey asked, still catching her breath as she exited the coaster, her sleek dark hair waving in a fresh spring breeze. Like you're aware as something is happening that you'll remember it forever. That was one of those moments. Bailey was known around the Genesius backstage as the coolest girl in the world, and she often said beautifully insightful things like that without even realizing it. Made you want to be around her. Beckett was all too happy to get that chance more and more as the days grew longer and warmer and they explored their relationship in a new way. Beckett and Bailey had been close friends since their freshman year together at Penitent Angels. For a while after Beckett's transfer to Genesius, they only got to see each other when Bailey would come over to play the female lead in the Genesius shows. There were a million excellent things about starting to think of each other as maybe more than friends, but the most excellent was definitely spending more time together. Right now, I'm remembering that hot dog eating contest we, for some reason, decided to have right before riding the Meadowlark, Aziz said, looking a bit grim. When you were vanquished, Sasha declared, by me, Sasha, first of his name, devourer of dogs, commander of the unnauseous, breaker of belts and buttons. What should we do now? Jory asked. Relisher of relish. Take a breather, Hunter suggested. Ice cream. Master of mustard. Breather, yes, Aziz said, trying to keep his lunch down. Ice cream, we'll see. Baron of buns! Soon the whole gang was lounging happily in a grassy knoll by the pond in the center of the amusement park. As the sun finally flirted with setting, the Backstagers watched strangers serenely circling the water in paddle boats, listening to the distant whoosh of the meadowlark, the tinkle of a carousel, and the hum of a whole park full of people enjoying the fresh warmth and light of spring. Can I just say, Timothy said, breaking the golden spell of the late afternoon, that it's so nice to have this time together to just be us. We've had a crazy year, and with our college tour coming up and then graduation right around the corner, I was worried Jamie and I wouldn't get another day like this with you guys. It had been a crazy year, indeed. St. Genesius produces 4 full musical productions a year, and the guys had just closed the third, Phantasm, a few days ago. That would be enough to fully frazzle a kid who only had to worry about homework, parents, and social survival in high school, but when you're a backstager, things are considerably more complicated. In this year alone, the Backstagers had fought off a horde of echo spiders, been trapped in the backstage for weeks by a creature called Polaroid, and literally died fighting off an actual ghost that had moved into the Genesius auditorium. Luckily, their deaths were only temporary. Since then, though, things had been blissfully quiet. Phantasm had been a huge success, and the downtime between shows was filled with nothing but perfect normalcy. Seconded, Jamie said, scratching his bushy beard indulgently. Can't believe Tim and I will be graduating in just a couple of months. It feels like yesterday I took my first steps into the backstage. Be sure to let me know how you got from there to stage manager, Rayo said, lounging in the grass with his wide-brimmed black hat tilted over his eyes. Because it's overwhelming, to say the least, being the new kid. Jory had to smile. He had been the new kid until Rayo came along. It was very good news to be old news. It won't be the same without you guys, but I'll make you proud, Hunter said. Oh, trust us. We wouldn't be taking this college tour if we didn't know you had it locked down, Timothy said. I can't wait to be a senior, so that I can take 3 weeks off school and drive around the country, Beckett said, trying to keep as cool as Bailey casually held his hand for the first time. I am genuinely worried about how much Diet Coke it will take to get you through college essays, Beck, Timothy said. We'll all have your back, Hunter, Aziz said. It's been a crazy tough season, but Les Terribles, Lise, and Phantasm were all huge successes. I'm psyched to go for a perfect score with Tammy. And speaking of perfect scores, Jamie said, let's hear it for Bailey for landing the title role, Tammy herself. The Backstagers all gave a hearty cheer as Bailey rolled her eyes and took a little bow. Every show St. Genesius produced, one girl from Penitent Angels was allowed to perform as a guest artist in the female lead role. Lots of hopefuls auditioned, but Bailey had been cast and led every single time because in addition to being the coolest girl in the world, she was also the most talented student actor anyone at Genesius had ever seen. This spring, she played the title role in the final show in St. Genesius Drama Club's season Tammy, the high-octane rock opera. It told the story of the young deaf girl, Tammy, who grew up feeling cut off from the rest of the world until her talent for skee-ball made her an unlikely star. And even better, Aziz said, as he looked to Adrian excitedly, he caught himself and attempted, awkwardly because he was still learning, to communicate with her in American Sign Language. Adrian was the only deaf member of a hearing family, so when she wore her hearing aids, she was comfortable speaking and lip-reading around hearing people. Still, she was touched that Aziz was making an attempt to learn sign as their relationship grew. "You scream news?" he signed. Adrian laughed and demonstrated the sign for inform, which she knew is more what Aziz was going for. "No," she signed back. "I wanted to wait until it was official." "I was waiting to tell everyone until I knew for sure," Adrian spoke aloud for the group. "I'm going to be the sign language captain for Tammy. Penitent is letting me take a leave from backstaging to work at Genesius, so I'll be around for the whole rehearsal process." "Adrian, that's amazing!" Bailey jumped up and hugged her friend. "I was so nervous about the sign language, but I didn't want to bother you for lessons." "Oh, girl, please, it's my pleasure," Adrian replied. "Honestly, when I see hearing people play deaf, I absolutely cringe at their signing. Hands waving around randomly, dead in the eyes." She mimicked a zombie-like performance she had seen too many times before. It cracked everybody up. "No, that's what I'm going to look like," Bailey moaned, laughing. "Can't you just play Tammy, please?" "You know, I actually always wanted to be an onstager," Adrian said. "Really? Well, why didn't you try it?" Bailey asked. "Well, kind of hard to find a place for a deaf girl in a musical," Adrian replied. "I'm not the most gifted singer, as you can imagine." She said it as a joke, but Bailey wasn't laughing. She firmly believed that theater was for everybody, and it made her sad that Adrian had accepted her dream as impossible. Adrian saw the dismay in Bailey's eyes. "Don't stress, you'll be great," she said, shaking Bailey by the shoulders playfully. "I'm excited to help you. Once you're fluent, we can talk about these boys without them knowing." She shot Aziz a flirty look and got everyone laughing again. "Come on," she said, "let's ride something. That is, if Aziz's stomach can handle it." "What's the sign for puke?" he asked, as everyone peeled themselves up off the grass and started to their next ride. Bailey lingered for a moment, her mind still turning over what Adrian had just said. She watched her signing with Aziz so effortlessly, so in her element. It made her wonder. More moments became memories as the day sped along like a roller coaster before slowing toward its finish. The gang made one last stop as they headed for the exit because there is no greater pleasure than eating ice cream while surrounded by a galaxy of twinkling colored lights. "Are we still on for tomorrow, Jory?" Rayo asked. He had chosen mint ice cream specifically because Mercury was in retrograde. As the resident witch of the group, he said stuff like that a lot. Everyone went with it. "Oh, totally. Meet me at the unsafe door after school," Jory said. He took his magic notebook out of his shoulder bag. "I think we should put the next part here," he said, pointing to a sketch on the page. "When are you going to show us what you guys have been working on?" Hunter asked. "When it's done," Jory said, snapping the notebook closed mischievously. "Guys! Guys! Guys!" Sasha shouted, his big eyes widening even more as he spotted a photo backdrop wall near the exit. It was a mural of the meadowlark against a painted blue sky with a real coaster car in the foreground, so you could pose on it as if you were riding it. "We have to get a picture!" He sprinted toward the wall, a plump blonde blur in the glittering night. "Backstagers, assemble!" Timothy shouted. They formed an elaborate tableau on the roller coaster car, posing as if they were flying off the speeding car and holding on for dear life. A kind stranger snapped a photo on Jory's phone. There's a really good picture that Ryan did. Look at how cute the kids are. "Do you guys mind if I post this on InstaSnap?" Jory asked as they waited for their rides in the parking lot. "My aunt follows me and is always concerned I'm not making friends because I only post pictures of my sketches." That was fine with everyone, and Jory posted the adorable photo, proof of a moment made a memory, a family of friends on a perfect spring night. Across the globe, where the moon was high in the night sky, the masked figures knelt before a statue of a robed deity. The tragedian pleaded into the stone microphone, petitioning the god as fiercely as she could. "Please, please hear our call. Show us what we seek. The theater..." The comedian's phone chimed in his pocket. The tragedian paused, gritting her teeth, then continued. "The theater has lost its way. We have strayed so far from..." Another chime. "So far from what you have built for us. Please help us find the legendary..." One chime too many. The tragedian exploded in anger as the comedian fumbled in his pocket for the offending device. "My gosh, can you just turn that off when we're out here? This is exactly the problem we're trying to..." Whoa. the comedian whispered, transfixed by something on his cell phone screen. What is it? Well, everyone in the group text is sharing this InstaSnap photo. Dimitri spotted it on the Backstager tag. It's from some high school Backstager in America. Well, why should I care about what a kid is posting on InstaSnap? The tragedian grumbled. Because look at what he's holding. The comedian showed her the image on his screen. It was a group of kids pretending to take a wild roller coaster ride. The kid cascading out of the front car was clutching something that filled the two masked marauders with wild excitement. Could it be? The tragedian whispered intensely. Everyone's agreeing. It sure looks like it, the comedian said. The designer's notebook. The two shared an eager look, then turned to their statue, amazed at a prayer answered so quickly. The statue glistened in the silvery light of the full moon. Was it a trick of light and shadow cast by the flickering candles? Or did the ancient stone deity actually begin to smile? Thanks, guys. That's the first, little bit. And I hope you go pick it up and like it. And if you haven't read the first book, Backstagers in the Ghostlight, that's available everywhere. And I really recommend reading the comics, because they're great, and they, introduce all of these characters sort of one by one. And while I tried my best to make the books stand on their own, it really will sort of fill out your understanding of this world. And there's a lot of little Easter eggs that are extra fun if you've read the comics, and support them because they're by amazing queer artists. So now let's hang for a little bit. Do you have any questions? I'm just gonna read your little comments. If I can figure out how. Anybody want to know anything? I should make an ASMR channel. I don't fully get what that is. I feel like I'm not alone in that. Your wig, audiobook. Eloise is up in the loft. She's sleeping. I wish I would show her off to you, but she's very very shy. What character do I relate to most? That's a really question. I was saying a lot when I was doing the first book that it was Jory, because he's the new kid in school, and I was new to this world, new to writing books. And now I think I relate most to, all of them. But I'm going to say Hunter now, because I feel like Hunter works really, really hard to take care of his friends and sort of be there for everybody and be a leader and lead by example. And I feel like that's at least what I try to do. I'm probably not as good at it as Hunter is, but I like him a lot. What's my goal as a writer, and what inspired me to write in my life right now? Thanks for your question. My goal as a writer is just to keep contributing stories that I think, especially when I'm writing for this age group, stories that I would have loved and would have needed when I was this age. So positive representation of lots of different kinds of people, characters that have a strong moral compass, and who, even if they mess up, can admit when they're wrong and learn from their mistakes, and just be the kind of kids that I wanted to know and wanted to be. And I was inspired to write because, when you're an actor, as you're making your way through your career, you eventually, there's this thing that happens when you have to be available, they call it. You can't just take absolutely anything that comes along or that looks interesting, because you have to if you take a job that's not in town, and then while you're away or while you're under contract with that job, something really life-changing comes up in New York and you miss it, you have to sit around and wait. And so there's a lot of downtime. There's actually more downtime the longer you've been doing it than there is at the beginning. And so I was just really wanting something to occupy my time and my creativity during those times, and something that I was in charge of, rather than doing my best to prepare an audition, but ultimately having some stranger behind a table decide if I'm any good and if I'm allowed to act. This, other than taking the advice of the creators and my editor, Maggie Lerman, I really am in charge. And that's a really cool thing when you're so used to being an actor, being a cog in the wheel rather than the wheel itself. It's a great challenge, so I've really enjoyed it. Let's see. When you're reading a book, do you ever imagine it as a stage adaptation? All the time. And let me tell you what, especially now that Michael is doing so well with directing and like actually can like make things happen. I mean, it's no easy feat. Don't get me wrong. It takes literally years to get any kind of theater thing off the ground. But like when I read a book, if I'm like, this should be a show, I can like show it to him and he can like try to make it happen, which is like incredible. Like how fortunate for me. It's really fun to think about. What was my favorite part about writing this book? Or last book, either or, just writing in general. About writing this book, I knew from the moment that I started writing these books that I wanted to do the Spring Awakening story. So as you could tell from the reading, there's a deaf character strongly featured in this book. Her name's Adrian. She actually appears in the comics, but only a couple of times. And I wanted to really like center her because I knew that I wanted to tell a story similar to my experience working on Deaf West Spring Awakening, meeting deaf people, learning sign language, and sort of like coming together to make theater. Because that was like the most profound thing that's ever happened to me. And so I knew I wanted to do that. I didn't think the first book was the place to do it, just because I wanted the first book to be like really universal, and I was still learning how to write prose, so like writing ASL as well just seemed too challenging, and it seemed like it wanted to be its own story. So as soon as like book 2 was happening, I was like, yes, now's the time, I'm gonna do it. So the best part about writing it was like thinking back on that time and like getting back in that headspace and just remembering those early days of like figuring stuff out in the room and weeping and being amazed at how the deaf actors and the hearing actors were like feeling each other, and how we learned to like just do things without communicating verbally or non-verbally at all, like just literally like sensing each other's souls. It was unbelievable. So a lot of like good memories came up. And then in every book there's like a lot of parody musicals, and I needed them to be doing a musical, and I was like, well, Spring Awakening felt not right for this age group, obviously. And I was doing Tommy. Did I just go out? Okay. Hopefully I'm back. Which is obviously a sort of version of Tommy. And so there are some Easter eggs about that in here too. And yeah, I really enjoyed writing this one. Let's see. Favorite part about filming Smash? My favorite part about filming Smash was like the very late nights with those people, because when you're on a TV show you work just crazy hours, and by the end of the week you do what's called a Fraturday, where you start work at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, even later sometimes, and then you don't wrap until like dawn on Saturday. You shoot all night long. And so things get very silly and people get very punchy, and there's lots of jokes, and you have tons of downtime where you're like sitting waiting for everyone to set up the shot, and that's when you really get to know people. And I have really good memories from then with Jeremy and Krista and Wes and, Jesse Martin and all those kids. I love those kids. Let's see. Do you find any connection between expressing yourself with writing and acting? For sure. Like, you have to put yourself inside a character to know like what they're going to do, and so it's really the same process in a way, but you have a lot more control when you're writing, because like not only are you making the acting choices, like I can say he said frustrated, or he said slyly, or he said coyly, or he said, like, you can like tell the reader the way that the character is saying the line, but you can also write the line, and you can also costume the world and design the world. You're completely in charge. I started playing Dungeons & Dragons recently with some people, and that's an amazing writing experience. Dungeons & Dragons is good, you guys. Let's see. Are you continuing to learn ASL? I am sadly like really out of practice, just because, my life has not permitted me to continue to learn, and then I don't see my deaf friends nearly as much as I used to, because we're not all in the same place. So I'm very rusty. So I gotta be better about that. That's the answer to that. Do you have a favorite sign? My favorite sign is obsessed. I'm obsessed with that. And you can do it directionally toward something. Like if I'm obsessed with, there's nothing in frame, but like this stack of books, I can be like obsessed with that. There's something about it I just really like. What show would I want to do with Deaf West? Well, it was Spring Awakening. I mean, that was the dream always, and then we did it. There's one other show that I think would really, the show itself on paper would benefit from the Deaf West thing, but I'm not going to tell you just in case we end up doing it. Do I have a name sign? I do have a name sign. It was given to me by Josh Castile, and it's this for Andy, which is the sign for Scorpio, but double, because I'm a double Scorpio, and it's on the mouth because the deaf cast thought that like the corners of my mouth were really distinctive, which I think they are. I sort of have a weird mouth. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's do 2 more questions. I don't speak Spanish. I'll give you that one for free, but I really want to learn to speak Spanish because I was just in Mexico City for the first time recently, and I completely fell in love, and I was like, I'm going to come back here with as much Spanish as I can. Besides the original Deaf West Spring Awakening, have you ever thought of directing? For sure. But now, because Michael's so damn good at it, I feel better about sort of like discussing ideas with him and like being ancillary to his vision and like sort of offering my ideas up because I am not good in any part of my life at like logistics and like, you know, details. I'm not very details oriented, and you have to be incredibly details oriented. Like the number of phone calls I've witnessed Michael have about like what kind of, you know, front of a light is being used, like low-lying fog. Oh my God, the phone calls that I've witnessed about fog are insane. And Michael excels at that kind of thing, and I would be terrible at it. So I think maybe in my future, but for now, I'm just not enough of an adult to be a director. One more question. Let's make it good. Meow, 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 meow. What book would you want to see adapted into a musical or stage show? Ooh, God. That's too hard to think about. I'll think about it, though, and get back to you. Let's see. Reasons for starting to write. I sort of already went over that, but just wanted to be in charge of something rather than waiting for someone to give me a job. Okay. What movie then? Oh, Elle is asking, what movie or book would I want to see on stage? My answer to this was always Almost Famous, and now that's happening. So, like, I'm really excited about that. Ooh, Great Gatsby. I'm looking at it on my bookshelf right now. We haven't had, like, the Great Gatsby. We've had Gats, which was cool. Apparently there's a Gatsby musical in development right now. But I want to see, like, the Great Gatsby show because it's such a rich, delicious world. And I also I think it would be a good musical because not that much actually happens in it. It's actually pretty light plot-wise, but, like, it's all about character and, like, those long bouts of Nick, like, telling you about his feeling, like, all that stuff could be musicalized. Okay, well, that's my story. I am gonna pour myself a drink and celebrate Backstagers 2, and y'all, Backstagers 3 is, like, almost done and dusted, and that comes out in October. So if you haven't read any of the books before, I hope you'll give them a try. They're available wherever books are sold. I've seen some good deals online. I think on Amazon, book 2 is like $10 right now. And, you know, they're for middle grade readers, technically. 10 to 14 is like the target age, but I've seen people much older really enjoy them. I've seen them read to kids that are younger. And what else is there to say? Thanks a lot. And yeah, it means a lot to me that you tuned in. So have a great night and read the book. Bye.